A very heartfelt welcome to this debate on the freedom of speech, and a welcome on behalf of the Balkan Traffic Music, Culture and above all Human Relations Festival. My name is Olaf Bruns and I'm going to guide you through this next 45 minutes. Now, initially these debates were thought and planned as on-stage debates, and we would be sitting now together with you guys, which I would love to do, in a cinema here in Brussels. But then, of course, came the coronavirus crisis, and now we are connected by video conference. Now, everybody glued to their screens, but I think the one thing that hasn't changed is, and that is important for us, is that these debates are not intended as some kind of expert panels, but it's rather about sharing experiences, bringing people together, listening to each other, and well, that's a dream in the best case, to participate in creating networks. Now, this one is on the freedom of speech, and is of course about the endangered freedom of journalists. And I have to say a couple of words on this. Authoritarianism, I think, is on the rise everywhere on the planet, and this is not something that is specific to the Balkans. You just have to look at the US, India, Brazil, and of course far-right parties on the rise in several countries of our own European Union. And the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, was used by many authoritarian rulers as a pretext to even tighten the situation even further. Now, a few days ago, Reporters Without Borders has released their World Press Freedom Index, and they make a very clear link between the suppression of media freedom in response to the coronavirus pandemic and each country's ranking in the index. But I would first like to introduce everybody here in this debate. We have Jelena Vasic, a project manager and investigative reporter at the Serbian investigative website KRIK. Welcome. Are you joining us from Belgrade? Jelena? Your picture is frozen.
Sorry, I have some.
I think all pictures are frozen. No.
Do you hear me?
Can you hear me? Okay, I just move on.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Okay, that's perfect. I go on to the others. Atanas Chubanov, you're from Bulgaria. You're the editor-in-chief of the investigative website Bivol BG. Welcome. Are you connecting from Sofia?
No, I'm connecting from Paris. I'm living in France.
You're based in Paris. Okay. Elvira Jukic, editor-in-chief of the Media Center in Bosnia-Herzegovina. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you, and a warm welcome. Hello from Sarajevo.
And last but not least, Sándor Zsiros, the Brussels correspondent of the Hungarian language service of the TV channel Euronews. Welcome.
Hi, welcome everyone.
And to make everything perfectly transparent, Sándor and I have been working together at Euronews for a couple of years. So this is not a new setting, and Sándor is joining from Brussels. He's probably only a couple of kilometers away from where I am sitting right now. Now, I have noted the numbers for the 4 countries you're representing in the World Press Freedom Index that has been released by Reporters Without Borders a few days ago. And we have Bulgaria, 111th of 180 countries, Serbia, 93rd, Hungary, 89th, and Bosnia, 58th. Now, there are, of course, differences, but what is similar, it's not that great in all countries we're speaking about. It puts Serbia, Hungary, and Bosnia in the problematic category, and Bulgaria even in the really endangered category. So I would like, for the opening statements, to go exactly down that same list, and that's why I start with Atanas. Atanas, a couple of minutes for you.
Yes, I'm proudly representing the worst performing country in the European Union, and also probably on the not on the continent, but among the neighbors, the Balkans, were the worst performing in media freedom, despite the European membership since 2007. Actually, if you look at the ranking before 2007, Bulgaria was performing much better. We were at the 35 positions in the same Reporters Without Borders ranking. But what happened after the accession to the European Union is a grip of a couple of oligarchs over the media market, sustained with, of course, with budget money from the government, but also by European money flow. And later I will explain this phenomena that European money that should improve democracy are actually worsening the Bulgarian democracy, the Bulgarian media freedom, because of this famous subsidiary principle that you give rogue governments the right to dispose with European money and to bribe the media.
Atanas, thank you very much, and that's of course very interesting, because when we speak here in the media about authoritarianism within the European Union, it's mostly about Poland and Hungary, and nobody really speaks about Bulgaria that much, so we're very interested in hearing you afterwards. But to go further down that same line, Jelena, the floor is yours for a couple of introductory remarks.
I hope you can hear me now.
I can.
Well, good. Regarding Serbia, as you said, we're on 93rd place. And Reporters Without Borders have said that since this current president, Aleksandar Vučić, has begun his leadership, that Serbia has became a state where it is often dangerous to be a journalist, and where fake news have become hugely popular. And I can only confirm that from my personal experience and experience of the team I represent. I come from an investigative team called KRIK, and we also have our debunking website called Raskrikavanje, which means debunk in Serbian. And since this pandemic has started, everything the Reporters Without Borders have noticed in Serbia, everything has increased or has been bare-boned. You can choose whatever is easier to perceive, but the situation is terrific, horrible regarding the fake news about the coronavirus in Serbia. They're emerging every day. And because of that, we needed to launch a live blog that is dedicated only to debunking fake news about a new virus in Serbia. And regarding freedom of expression, freedom of press, that has again been endangered here, especially in this situation, because I think that Serbia was the first country in Europe to arrest a reporter because of coronavirus reporting. At the beginning of April, a colleague from another media was arrested because she reported about poor conditions in one of Serbian hospitals. And she was released the next day, but the case against her is still ongoing. And I more about that, it just to illustrate the state of press freedom in Serbia right now.
Thank you very much, Jelena. Sandor, you're the next one down that line.
Yes, I'm not an investigative journalist. I'm a foreign affairs journalist. I work in this field since actually 20 years. First 10 years, I was pretty much pro-Orban journalist while I was working in Hungary. The second 10 years, I would say that I'm more independent from them. I moved to Brussels 7 years ago because, first of all, I got the opportunity to work for Euronews, but the second reason was the pressure on the media, and especially on my previous channel in Hungary, was so high from the government, actually, that I felt like I'm choking. So I was very happy to come to Brussels, and I'm one of the few independent journalists from the Hungarian media. Every year we are less and less, not because there is no freedom of speech in Hungary. You can speak perfectly freely, you can write whatever you want, but the case is that there is no more media that are willing to publish this, because if you are a businessman, you don't want to risk your investment to a media which might be shut down, which might be sold to oligarchs, or your businesses might be punished by other fields in Hungary. So this is my background. I'm happy to answer to any questions. Maybe it's more interesting if you have some questions. I'm happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Sándor. And the last of our 4 participants, Elvira, for a couple of introduction remarks.
Well, hello. As I said, I'm from Sarajevo, and you mentioned the list from Reporters Without Borders, and I would say that you mentioned in the beginning, and these rankings, it says that is the best of these countries that we're talking now at this moment, but I'd like to say it maybe when we talk about Hungary, Serbia, and Bulgaria.
Elvira, excuse me, Elvira, I need to interrupt you for a second because your sound comes and goes. Is there maybe something wrong with your connection?
Well, I think it seems fine from my side. I'm not sure what's wrong.
Okay, now it's indeed getting better. Okay, so sorry for that interruption.
No problem. As I said, I would like just to say that maybe when compared with Serbia and Hungary, Bosnia is the best. Maybe I would like to say it's the least bad, because the situation is still very poor for journalists, as some main problems are the political pressures that still exist very much so on daily basis on media reporting, and audiences are divided, and journalists are sometimes journalists from different newsrooms seem like they're working against each other because of the way they report the same stories. And if you would just spend one day following the media in Bosnia and Herzegovina, you would see that there are certain stories that are covered so differently by different media that you wouldn't believe that they come from the same event, for example. And just to say a few examples, Jelena also mentioned situation in Serbia now with coronavirus and the whole pandemic and lockdown, and so there have been, I think we will talk about in the next threads, there are many examples of authorities to impose some new measures and new practices in order to limit the media and narrow down the space for asking questions. And one of the examples, for example, the authorities are they introduced this for practical reasons, so that journalists wouldn't crowd up in small press rooms. They introduced live press conferences where journalists can send their questions beforehand by email. But actually what happens is that they run through the answers, and the journalists, they never get the chance to actually ask the whole question, say, come on, you didn't answer my question, and that. So this is just one of the measures, and I'm happy to talk about
Elvira, Elvira, your connection is getting so weak. I can't understand anything anymore. I just asked somebody else and then come back afterwards. Maybe it's getting better over time, because I just can't, and I guess that our viewers can't hear anything anymore. Maybe it's stabilizing over the next couple of minutes. But Atanas, could you just expand a little bit on how in Bulgaria this current situation rolls out for journalists?
It's difficult. It's difficult to work in Bulgaria, especially for investigative journalists, because they don't have a stage. There is no place for critical investigative stories exposing the government, the deep government corruption in the mainstream media. Of course, we have internet, we have Facebook, we have a lot of followers trying to avoid the government controlled propaganda media landscape, but still it's not the coverage is not enough to shake the authorities and to change something in the so Bulgaria is worst performing in media freedom, but also on corruption, because media are key actors. Of course, media are key actors to tackle corruption and to shape the opinion against the corrupted politicians. So we have the full range of repressions against journalists, intimidation. We have even physical attacks. It was not counted in this 2019 ranking because it happened this year in 2020. But one of our colleagues was beaten with metal bars. He survived the attack, and this means that journalists are targeted like in in mafia style, which is happening in European country now. So we have other examples in the past. We have blasts against the cars of journalists that explode. We don't even count anymore intimidations we get by email, by phone, by Sicilian messages. So it's really hard to keep cold blood and to continue working in this situation. We can also add this constant economic pressure on the journalists. It was even said on the TV, in the mainstream TV, a politician said to the journalist in front of him, aren't you afraid to keep your place? And he was showing at the place next to the journalist, which was the place of his colleague, that she was fired days before. So you mean it
is about job security, but it's not only about job security. It's about threats for the actual life of journalists.
Absolutely, yes, but also. Yes, that's what I say. We have the full range from threats to physical threats to economical threats, and also one phenomenon that in Serbia is very well known. This is smearing the journalists in the government media and the propaganda outlets and making them enemies of the state in some sense, like the Dadzibao style. No, look at this one is against the government, against the stability. They are paid by Soros. They are paid by,
and that's pretext enough to
foreign governments. Yes, crush and this is a character killing approach. It's very it's known from the books of the KGB how to destroy a life, in the virtual space. Solzhenitsyn was victim of such Dadzibao campaign in the Soviet Union, and this is happening also now in Bulgaria, in Serbia, in other countries with journalists. I don't want to say we are Solzhenitsyn, but this is the same style.
Atanas, I'm going to interrupt you for a moment just to have everybody speaking a little bit. Sandor, I have a double question to you. One is, you mentioned briefly and very honestly that you have been rather pro-Orban in the beginning. So that the first part of my question would be what made you switch opinion? And the second one is it's unrelated actually, so it's really two different questions. The second one is, how is the situation playing out now in Hungary related to the coronavirus crisis?
So the answer to the first question is, we will have this Friday the 10th anniversary of Orban's power. I would say superpower, 2/3 majority he gained 10 years ago. And I was simply disappointed because he was, attacking Europe, playing to the fears of the people. This kind of policies, I was disappointed because I was thinking that once he get this super majority, he will quickly develop Hungary's economy, and we will have a upspring in Hungary. So, but this is just my side. But many from the conservative side of his former supporters are very, very disappointed and actually against him, because he's really playing with the utter feelings of the people. He's playing with fear, this kind of populist initiatives. Regarding the coronavirus question, we have a similar law like Jelena mentioned in Serbia. If you spread fake news, what they call fake news, regarding to the pandemics, you can be jailed up to 5 years. So far we are not there. Nobody was jailed. Nobody was arrested.
But it's a sword hanging over every journalist, of course.
We don't know. I mean, we will see in the practice how this will play out. The government said so far that this is not to silence the opposition media.
Well, that's what they say.
Fair point. And another point is that in the past there was a similar law for fake news. So there was a possibility for prosecution in the past also when you were spreading fake news, and there were prosecutions because somebody was spreading fake news. But how they will use this, we don't know. We simply don't know. But if you're a journalist and if you want to write a similar story about hospitals being unprepared, you have to think about that. The court maybe will think that this is a fake news, but then who is judging this in Hungary? For the moment, the prosecutor's office should send this case to the courts. The justice system, the courts are so far independent. The prosecutor's office, I wouldn't say so. I mean, there is several criticism. So whether we use it or not, we don't know. But we see that they use this coronavirus crisis for their own propaganda. In the last 5 years, the main fear was, immigration, immigrants, Muslims coming to Hungary. They will rape the women, they will take over the churches and the Christian culture. But now they changed. They want to defend Hungary from the virus. And, they made a very clever political trick. They made this emergency law with an unlimited time frame, and no democratic opposition in Europe would be ready to sign up for such a law. Of course, the Hungarian opposition also opposed this. They didn't sign up. And now we have a new enemy inside the country, the Hungarian opposition, which is, even in the time of the crisis, is not able to support the government because they proposed this very small detail of of the law, which is, many say this is undemocratic. So we have, of course, also a lot of fake news. There is one European report saying that most of the fake news are coming from Russia. I cannot confirm, but I can confirm that the most vulnerable people who are targeted in Hungary, they are pensioners. They are the most targeted people with the fake news, who are not able to double check information online, and they are the most vulnerable because of the virus. So whoever spreads this kind of fake news thinks that the vitamin C is enough to protect yourself, these are playing really with the life of the elderly people who are the most vulnerable. So it would be really, really, really important to stop this fake news, but we don't know what is the intention of the government. And when you see, of course, the last 10 years, it's always you have some doubts.
Yeah. Now, you already mentioned, and several of you guys mentioned fake news. Jelena, you mentioned that you're running a specific website on debunking fake news. And that is, of course, a huge amount of work you're putting into this, as investigative journalism is. Investigative journalism is time-consuming and money-consuming also. So I was wondering, how do you guys do? Because we here in Western Europe, serious media mostly are very established media that have often a long history of decades of publishing, or sometimes even centuries. And they are somewhere, they have their economics right from start. While you are in a much more kind of startup situation, doing a job that costs tons of money. How do you keep the ship afloat, Jelena?
Well, we have different ways. We are a 5-year-old organization, and since we established ourselves, we have decided to have different financial flows. The first one is, of course, fundraising. So we propose projects that we want to work on, like investigative projects regarding discovering corruption and organized crime, and we fundraise on international community. And our second and I believe most important way of funding ourselves is crowdfunding. And it's important not because the amount of budget we gain from it, because it's smaller than the first one, but it's because of the argument of it. Yes, precisely, the bond. Because we have all the power we have is our audience. And everything that is happening to us, and Atanas already mentioned the huge smear campaigns, the pressures, you name it, everything is easier because you have your audience behind you and beside you. And they're the ones who are donating our work on daily level, on monthly level, depending on how they can help. And they're also the ones spreading our investigations. They're also the ones even giving us ideas on how to fund for our work, writing to us on social media. They have even started like some support campaigns when we were attacked. On one of many occasions we were smeared in pro-government tabloids. So crowdfunding is for sure something I would recommend to every investigative media, because you work for the citizens, and it's only normal and logical to include them in your work by letting them support you. And the third way we finance ourselves is commercial revenue. So we held things in investigative journalism and in security, reporters' security all around the world. And that's how we manage to have a whole budget every year. And we have a small team, like 10 journalists and 3 people working in management side. So as you said, it is expensive, it is hard work, but I believe it's completely necessary. And I really see, especially in these months, that people from Serbia recognize the relevance of real news.
Could you just give a couple of examples of things you managed to uncover, just to get our viewers who probably don't all know your website into the mood a little bit? What kind of investigations are you running?
We investigate organized crime and corruption, and we have so far discovered that 3 current ministers in Serbian government are directly connected to 3 different organized crime groups. And we have investigative stories about many corruption cases. Maybe the most popular one is about our current finance minister. And it was discovered a while ago when he was a mayor of Belgrade, and it was discovered precisely with the dear colleague Atanas present today, because we as CRIC are a part of a huge network, organized crime and corruption reporting project that Atanas' website is also a part of. And together we discovered that our current finance minister has bought like 24 apartments on a Bulgarian sea coast through 2 offshore companies. So those are kinds of stories we investigate. We discover where politicians and people in power are hiding our money of the citizens. We discover corruption deals, and from 2 years we also discover fake news in Serbian media. So those are the most important things we do. But we also have databases. We have just launched an investigative podcast, so I can go on, but I believe that the others have also have an opportunity to talk.
Oh, sure. Thank you very much. What you're mentioning are cases where you would think this is enough to end a politician's career in normal conditions, but it doesn't seem to be that way. Atanas, I would like still on the business model, and that is of course getting very, very under strain now in this COVID-19 situation. Do you work on a similar model as Jelena? As CRIC?
Absolutely. We have more than 80% of crowdfunding revenue.
So for you, crowdfunding is really a big chunk of what you.
It is working for small, for a small team, not for a news desk making news every day.
Yeah, sure.
But for a small investigative team, this is an option, because people like reading. They like to read analytic stories about corruption. That's what we can say for the Bulgarian reality. And we have this year an increase of about 30% from the beginning of the year of our regular donators. We can.
Has that changed now since the coronavirus situation?
Yes, very interesting phenomenon. At the beginning of the crisis in March, we had people who were canceling their subscriptions. Now we did a couple of investigations about spending of money for ventilators, for masks, for one fun story that allegedly we imported 15 tons of medical supplies from the Emirates, but actually we showed that only 3 of them are masks. The rest 12 tons were dates, the fruit. You see, so it's an incredible story, and we have an increase of subscribers. In the middle of this terrible financial crisis, we have more subscribers and more donations than a year before.
So there is a clear phenomenon that people really realize the added value of serious journalism and investigative journalism, and they're ready to pay for it, even in a moment of economic hardship.
Yes, but it's very specific to, I suppose it's not working in any country for any media. We can say it's working for us for now, but I think it's a fragile, there is a fragility if you rely only on this model, because a terrible financial crisis like the one we are facing now can change the game. If you are lucky, you survive, but otherwise you need institutional support, and that's why I'm saying that European Union must support the investigative journalism and the independent journalism, and not supporting the propaganda outlets like it's happening today.
Well, that is something I would like to come back later on. Elvira, your connection was so bad a couple of minutes ago. Let's give it another try. We were speaking about, well, on the one side there is the investigative part, and on the other side, which is very important right now, is debunking fake news. Is this something that is important to your organization too?
First of all, I'm sorry for my connection, and
no, it's not your fault. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, sure. So disinformation is also one of the biggest problems currently in Herzegovina regarding the related to coronavirus. And what we are trying to do is to empower journalists who are working on daily basis on reporting on the situation. We have investigative journalists and similar to Bivol and to Creek. It was in Herzegovina, and they have impact, like your stories also have impact. But our colleague from Hungary, he mentioned old people. So not just old people, but public in general. They are more dependent on mainstream media, not just investigative teams, which are doing great jobs, and some of the stories they end up in the mainstream media. So people are mostly in the house. Everyone is watching TV. So what is it that we have on TV? What is it that we have on news portals? This is what we are trying to map, and this is where we are trying to work with these journalists who are in the field every day, trying to gather all these pieces of information that people are mostly interested in. So, but there are also bigger problems now that I mentioned in the beginning. So deterioration of freedoms for media, deterioration of freedoms of also of movement of citizens in general. But during this crisis, it is very hard to push these important topics of kind of pressuring the freedoms in this crisis situation that we are going to be worried about actually now or 5 years from now, Yeah, and this trend here, I think we were about to mention this kind of
Elvira, excuse me. Elvira, excuse me. It's the connection is getting very, very, very coming and going again. It's not possible to follow you anymore. So I will come back to you in a second, but I just can't make sense of your sentence anymore. Until now, I understood you, but I will because time is of course getting short. I had all this list of topics to debate, but I need to ask Atanas for a little bit of more explanation on what the European Union, money streams is financing exactly the wrong way. I cut you twice on this already, so you need to have the opportunity to tell us about that.
It's very simple. The European Union is giving money for infrastructure, for developing the country, the roads, the agriculture. There are many structural European funds and agriculture funds. So one small part of those billions is the money for advertising the projects. To say, look how good is the European Union giving you money. And if you look at the amounts, there compared to the billions, we have tens of millions, let's say, for a 5 years period of European money going for advertising the European projects. and the money is distributed by the government. And of course, they give the money only to the media that are not critical with the government.
So what you're saying is that this money is basically handed out by the Bulgarian government without any oversight from Brussels or from whatever institution. It is
Exactly.
just that they can basically do whatever they want.
That's the case, and it was distributed in a completely non-transparent way in the beginning. Now we have more transparency because of public opinion and pressure, but still the government decides to give or not to give the money. So, and what is the point to advertise the European projects? If the work done is seen by everybody and is good for the population, you don't need to say it on the radio or on the TV. It's like Soviet times propaganda, you see. So it's better to cut this money and to budget support for investigative reporting on how the European spendings are hijacked by the government, how they generate corruption. We estimate that 40% of the European funding in Bulgaria is stolen. So if we can decrease this,
40%?
Yes, 40% is stolen through rogue.
40, not 40.
40, yes, through rogue public procurement. We know it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a corruption tax that goes straight to the pockets of the politicians and is curbing the effect of the European investment, because this country is not developing when you have bad quality roads, when you have stadiums built in a village where we have a stadium for 5,000 people in a village with 300. So who won from this stadium? Of course, the company that built the stadium, and they got the European money. But what's the point? I mean, you see, we need to improve the management of the European funds. And fortunately, those phenomena, they are known for years. But in Brussels, the minds are not changing. They follow their way, and the situation is hopeless.
The European
yes.
Commission building is just in the background of mine, so that's a
Yes,
very clear call you're launching there. Elvira, your picture has become much sharper. So I will try again, because I want to have you participating in this debate too. Hopefully the sound is as good as the picture is now. And I was just curious, you're of course out of the European, well, you're not part of the European Union. Still, are there European funds allocated to independent media in Bosnia?
There actually.
Oh my God, Elvira, I'm so sorry. It is, the sound is even worse. I can't. I just hear going. There's no way we can listen to you. This is really, really unfortunate. It's to my biggest regret. And I also see that time is running out. So I would just like to do a last round, and I will all ask you to just answer with one single sentence. Now, in the situation that we are, what would you say is the most pressing and the most urgent need for independent media, for the freedom of press, for the freedom of expression, of course? Sándor, a first sentence, just a first closing sentence.
A very good question. I think we are in this decade, start of this decade, we are in very, very critical times. If we don't check our own information that we are publishing, journalism will be the major crisis. So we need to check everything. We cannot publish anything that is not factually correct, and this is how the traditional media can survive. Maybe this is what I would say.
Thank you very much, Sandor. Jelena, the most pressing issue for independent journalism and the freedom of speech right now in this situation we're in for you?
Well, for Serbia, it may be surprising, but if you want independent journalists to continue their work and for it to be successful, for Serbia, you need to liberate the prosecution and the courts. Because when we discover a corruption case, we need prosecution to continue our work, and they do not do it. And that's the key issue, I believe, for Serbia.
That is really a shortcoming of the judiciary system, which of course, I mean, after all, in a normal setting, if you do investigative journalism and you bring cases to the court, that's exactly where it should be solved, of course. Atanas, for you, the most pressing issue?
Well, in this situation or in any situation, the journalists are pressed to have good stories. If we have good stories, if we have readers, we have their support, we have the crowdfunding, and we can survive in any situation. And so that look for the good stories. Crisis situation is more opportunity for finding them.
It is, and that is. Thank you very much for that. This optimistic outlook somewhere, because it's really on the quality of journalism, of course, and that is for many of you here linked to this debate, the quality of your investigations. Elvira, let's at least for this last sentence, let's give it another try. The most pressing issue, and maybe we can get at least one sentence clear through from you.
Most important, not where the bar.
Elvira, no, I cut you. There's no way. It is. I just can't. I can't understand a single full word from you. So that's unfortunately, but it's also a bit of a sign of what we are dependent on now. We're dependent on this technology to connect us, which can make it very, very difficult to understand each other and to have a proper debate. So I think that there is something to be taken away from the mere fact that, Elvira, we can't really talk to you. But I have to close it here. I know it is unsatisfying. I know these short debates are a bit frustrating because we can only scratch the surface. But I think that there were many important issues that have been mentioned, at least in this short debate. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you for everybody who has been watching this debate. And I think for everybody who speaks the languages you are publishing in, go to the websites of the journalists that were present in this debate. It's certainly worth it, and give your support to independent journalism, because that is what we really rely on in this moment. It is just very important. So thanks a lot for participating in this debate. The debate is over, but just one thing: the Balkan Traffic Festival is not over yet. It is online from now to Sunday. So make sure you go also to the balkantraffic.com website. There is loads of videos, music that should have been on stage but can't. But also portraits of artists, of writers, and so on. And there's a couple of other of these debates on rather social and political topics. So thank you very much for everybody, and keep on doing the good job. We need you journalists more than ever. Thanks a lot.